Welcome to the Creative Permission Slip, where creativity is wild, necessary, and waiting for you. You are invited to come as you are, bring what you've got, and remember it's never too late to create. I'm your host, Amy Carlson, integrative life and leadership coach, here today to talk about permission to simplify. So recently I did a podcast episode about permission to declutter. This one is very similar, so you may enjoy listening to them, close together. Or you could just take one of them and do what you will with it, whatever calls to you. Simplification, streamlining, being more efficient and effective. If you consider in life all of the different things that work better when simplification is being engaged with, you might consider things like processes. If you can take a process from 10 steps down to 3 steps, you know you're going to be more likely to actually do it. This also is something that happens in business a lot. Simplifying systems, simplifying processes, simplifying how things get from point A to point B. We know in any of our own routines, I'm just thinking particularly like of morning routines and evening routines, if you can simplify what needs to happen in that window of time, typically you can feel a sense of calm and a sense of accomplishment, which both are really fabulous things. I think you would agree to connect with that kind of sensation. Then on the opposite side of things, if you if you make something overly complex, even when I said that word, how did you feel? Unnecessarily overly complex. How does that feel? How does that land for you? Does anything come to mind that is that way in general or in your life right now? And then consider again, simplify. How does that feel? How does that land for you? So I want to give you permission to simplify. Simplify anything in your life right now that is feeling overly complex. I was joking to myself one day as I was working on some things in my business and getting a little bit too much in my head about it. And suddenly the sentence dropped in for me, and it was, no one ever wants or asks or voices for more complexity, please. More steps, please. Particularly at the end of life, do you suppose anyone says, oh, I wish it would have been more complex? So, a lot of times, my feeling is we overcomplicate things as possibly protection or procrastination or avoidance in general. You name it, it all kind of fits under that same category of just not, of putting something off, right? Now, I'm not saying that putting something off is always a bad thing. I'm sure you can all relate. Having put something off, only later to realize that you weren't clear on how you were going to do it anyway. And then you got some clarity and it went really so much easier, so much smoother. Or you put something off and then it went on sale. Yay. Or you put something off and you realize it was never yours. Maybe it was somebody else's dream. Maybe it was an idea for someone else to work on. You just recognize that actually there was no current, no juice, no aliveness there for you. But when we know that there is aliveness there for us, and we put something off by overly making it overly complex, that's a good time to get curious and just wonder, wonder what that's all about. And, humor helps. The more we can laugh at ourselves, with ourselves, and just go, oh, isn't that interesting? And then see, are you interested in finding a simpler way? Are you interested in streamlining? Are you interested in the thought of being more effective or efficient? So, to me, all of this has a lot to do with energy. And I used to expend energy very randomly, very frequently, partly because I've always thought of myself as someone that had a fair amount of energy. So I felt like I didn't have to be energy efficient. Well, now I'm actually very interested in energy efficiency for myself, for the world, all variety of things. Um, and I heard someone name what apex animals do the other day, and that just caught my attention. I I hadn't, first of all, like a different word that I don't hear all the time will catch my attention. So I was like, oh, apex. Yeah, it's like top of the triangle, right? And then she went on to describe, how these animals um, don't expend energy that they don't have to. They will sit and wait. They understand what their job is. They're not trying to be somebody else. They're very clear. Here's what I do. Here's how I get my food. Here's when I expend energy. And there's a reason that they're at the top of the food chain, right? So, this idea of simplicity, boiling things down to who, what, why, where, boiling things down to your top values, boiling things down to your top priorities for this period of time, boiling things down to if this were my last day on earth, how would I want to spend it? Boiling things down to um, what is a full body yes for me? And then letting the rest go. We really can't put 100% of our energy into everything going on around us. The thought of that is just thinking of it is exhausting. And so to me, I also get curious. When I make things overly complex, am I avoiding creativity? Because creativity usually does not come from complexity. Now we can appreciate something that is like, wow, some theory that is really like wild and mind-blowing. And that can be different. That doesn't have to be complex. It's just that we can be fascinated by different. We can be fascinated by having our mind blown. But even those things, probably the people that are really engaging with them, they can say, you know what it boils down to? So, how can you start to boil it down? Anytime you start to feel that overwhelm, that the sensation of something is getting overly complex, you know how it goes even in a text message thread. Maybe there's five of you trying to decide when to get together and go have a meal together. There's a simplicity when there's a direction like, okay, I'm available Thursday night between this and this time. Who wants to get together? Okay, then you find out who. And then maybe the next prompt is, narrow it down to two places, this or this. and then it's a vote. Otherwise, if everything's open-ended, nobody wants to hurt anyone else's feelings. And then you know how that text message thread can go on and on, get overly complex, and pretty soon you don't even want to do anything with those people. And 5 minutes ago you did. The re the reason it feels like that is it just got overly complex very fast. So what does it boil down to? And you could use this process for your day. You could use this process for what is this meeting? What's at the heart of this meeting? What's at the heart of this project? What's at the heart of this, you know, my relationship with creativity right now? Ooh, that's a good question. So, permission to simplify, permission to get curious, permission to ask yourself those questions. And, since simplicity and complication are two sides of the same coin, you know that they dance together. They're going to interact together. And so when the other side of the coin shows up that you're not really as excited about, um, take a breath, breathe into it. You can't completely get away from it because, like I said, if you consider it as a coin, it's really one and the same. And so being able to embrace complexity and simplicity so that you know the difference, so that you can appreciate when you feel like you're on track toward that desired simplicity, so that you can also start to feel when you're veering off a bit, so that you can remember what it's all about. What's at the heart? What's at the heart of this? And you could even ask the same question to complexity. What's at the heart of this complexity? What's at the heart of me making this hard? What's at the heart of me blocking the simplicity? There's always a reason. There's a reason why. There's a payoff somehow. And when we get curious about it, we can start to, lighten up a little bit. We can laugh a little bit and recognize, how human we are. And then from there, it's easier to take an aligned action. It's easier to get some clarity rather than judging yourself. Just knowing that, oh yeah, that's right. Those two things do go together. They're two sides of one coin. And if I'm really curious about simplicity, then I could be intentional and put some attention towards that. And, if it's something that involves other people, let them have a say in it all too. Now, if it's just you working on something but often we do in one way or another need to engage with other people about something, even at like, hey, during this time period, I'm going to be in this room with the door closed, and I would love it if you could, only interrupt if it's a real emergency. And then you might, depending on who you're talking to, you might have to describe what that would mean. What's a real emergency? But you could also get support. I mean, a lot of people, um, sometimes I think we think that we are more valuable if we can present something that is complex. And ultimately, what we really admire is when something can just boil down to the simplest, and then everyone can understand it. And there's such beauty and appreciation in that. So, if you are a part of something, um, maybe experiment and try it out. What does it feel like to boil it down? What would it feel like to present the path of least resistance, the most simplified version of what is being asked for? And then just, see what comes up, see how it goes, see how you feel. And yeah, I think that we have a very interesting relationship with the idea of simplicity. Um, but I would venture to guess that ultimately that is something that we are all after. And I think if you stop and consider if creativity for you enjoys simplicity. And then you can always continue to layer on, right? But even a very complex project starts with step one, starts very simply, right? And so it's kind of that process of zooming in and zooming out. So give it a try if it sparks your interest. Permission to simplify, permission to get to the heart of something, permission to recognize that simplicity and complexity are related. They go hand in hand, and you get to choose your relationship, your mindset around all of that. Hope you enjoyed this. Until next time.